You ain't muzzling me. I can talk about whatever I want. You can go surfing where you want. I'm not stealing your thunder.
Talking smack on my couch. I like it. Welcome to Couch Surfing, the show where untouchable guests look back at their big roles, their little roles, and everything in between. I'm here with Kevin Costner. Kevin, let's see what's on. You ready?
Yeah.
Is that a yes?
Yeah, yeah.
All right. Let's go.
I remember driving Brian De Palma crazy because he knew what he was doing. He was going to do this in slow motion. He knew all these guys. And I made sure that I didn't run out of the right amount of bullets. And that always drove him crazy. And I said, look, we can make it more dramatic. I said, you show me who we're going to kill, and I'll tell you if I have enough shells. And if I don't, I'm going to be reloading. And he finally got hip to that's how I work. I just didn't want that gun to keep going. And so,
because that would have been utterly unrealistic.
It would have been unrealistic. And so what we did was we accounted for everybody. And that may seem like a little thing, but see, that's where I deliberately throw the gun down. I go to my revolver because, you know, in this instance, with everything going on, I didn't really have time to reload. Brian was right about that sequence. You know, some people could have felt like it was really indulgent. On the other hand, that's really not the general consensus, is that it was really exceptional.
All right, up next. If you build it, he will come.
Yeah. That's an interesting moment, that scene right there, because in the script, actually, I was supposed to miss it. And I'm an okay athlete. And I told the director, who's not really an athlete, do you know how hard it is to actually miss something on purpose and it not look accidental? I said, how about he just barely nicks it, so it's not anything you could brag about. In fact, it's actually kind of humiliating, and he wanders out and he gets it and he comes back, and the second one he hits out there. So I've referred to it as our generation's It's a Wonderful Life. I think that we all get so busy with our lives, everything's so important, but I think it's almost biblical that sons have trouble with their fathers. And this movie, for whatever reason, touches on it. Mm-hmm. And when it gets all the way down to the end, anybody who's been laughing with the movie and enjoying it, when they realize what it's about, it takes their breath away.
All right, up next.
That was Neil Young's buffalo.
Real?
Yeah. All the rest of the buffalo we had were wild. We needed one that was kind of tame.
And you called up Neil Young?
Yeah. He said, look, he'll actually come if you shake a box of Oreos. So we set him out there about
Oreo cookies?
See where that dead one is that way out there?
Yes.
So we start him out there. We put the camera right here, and then we have the Oreos and we shake them. And then when we let him go, he comes running for them.
So at this point in your career, you could have done anything. You could have done another baseball film. Those seem to work out for you.
Right.
But you decided that you wanted to not only direct this film, but you would secure the financing, you would wrangle 3,500 buffaloes, and you would learn the Lakota language.
Right, yeah.
Why take on such a massive endeavor? And did people tell you not to do that?
Well, my wife was seriously thinking, what are we doing, mortgaging our, you know, there was a lot at stake, but I really actually didn't think so. You know, when I fall in love with something, I don't fall out of love with it, and I don't hear the voices of fear that hold you back. I understood that the one person that could wreck it was me. I had a beautiful script, and I really felt that this was the movie that I wanted to make, and so that's what I wanted to be about in my life, is kind of following the ticking of my own heart.
Critics fell in love with it too. I mean, how many? 7 Academy Awards. One for Best Director, one for Best Film. That must have been a complete vindication.
I guess the voices quieted or whatever, but you know.
That's one way to shut down conversation.
Yeah, yeah.
This is kind of cowboy song, huh?
Yeah. Yeah.
You and Whitney Houston have palpable chemistry. I mean, this film is the definition of electricity. But I heard you had to fight for her.
It wasn't just an outright fight. It just was, wanted me to consider, you know, like, you know, really established actresses. But I just felt that the size of the role, she could handle that if we just kept watch on her.
I heard that at some point you had written or spoken to Princess Diana about creating a bodyguard type vehicle for her as well, and she actually entertained that?
No, she was, yeah. We were, the studio liked the idea of doing a bodyguard too. And,
With Princess Diana starring in it.
yeah, well, in the same kind of capacity as Whitney, and nobody really knew that for about a year. Sarah was really important. Sarah was, and I always respect Sarah because she's the one that set up the conversations between me and Diana.
Sarah Ferguson.
Yes.
Okay.
And
Thuggy.
she was the one that set it up, and she never said, well, what about me? I'm a princess too. She was just so supportive of the idea. And so she set that up, and Diana and I had this thing, and I said, look, I'm going to write this part with you in mind. Is this something that you think you would like to do? And she said, yes, I do. I just remember her being incredibly sweet on the phone, and she asked a question. She goes, are we going to have like a kissing scene? But she said it in a very respectful, but she was a little nervous because I think her life was very governed. And I said, yeah, there's going to be a little bit of that, but we can make that okay too.
Welcome back to Couch Surfing. I'm still here with Kevin Costner. Kevin, shall we continue?
Sure.
All right, let's do it.
Got to twist my arm when you win.
This thing's working perfect, man!
Tom Petty. What a legend. Walk me through how and why you cast him to play himself in this film.
Well, the line speaks to the idea of what fame is,
Right.
And it's like in the world that Tom lived post-apocalyptic, he's incredibly famous. And that's probably why his fame carried over in this particular movie with this group of people, is because he was famous. People have a tendency to rally, but he had the good sense that people probably go, you're not only a rock and roll star, you're pretty smart for all these people. So he's now leading this clan, but post-apocalyptic, the reality is fame doesn't have any status anymore. And so my fame as the postman had really started to spread. And so it was a nice back and forth between us. Like, no, man, you're famous. You know what I mean?
You're the postman, but you're Tom Petty.
You're really famous. I love this movie. I mean, I should have probably said Once Upon a Time, because it's a fairy tale.
All right, up next.
What can I do for you, Mr.
Let's say Smith.
This is one of the few times you play an outright villain.
He doesn't think of himself that way.
Well.
Here's the villain, that guy. I can't stop myself because I have a sickness.
I love that you're sitting here justifying the fact that your
I
character
have
is a
to.
serial
And listen,
killer.
when I can't justify it, I almost can't play it. Bad guys don't think they're bad. They just think people don't understand their problems. Dane was really good in this movie. And I loved killing him right at the end, too. With that shovel, I hit him in his head, gonged him 2 or 3 times, then I cut his throat with that shovel. He was dead as a bag of shit.
I don't think you can top that line. So next up,
A wet bag of shit.
a wet bag of shit. You topped it.
Uh-oh.
So this is the scene that gets the crowd cheering in the theaters.
Movies give us opportunity to look outside ourselves. And if we could walk history back, everybody in the world wishes they were tearing that sign down. Because that's where we needed to be as a mindset. That's where we need to get. That we just tear stuff down that marginalizes people. We tear stuff down that makes them feel small. We tear that sign down so that people understand there is not a single bit of difference between us, and that we have to go overboard to make room. And so I get to do that in movies sometimes, which is play people that are maybe braver than I am or smarter than I am. When we get to the end of the movie, you ask, who do you want to be? And you say, I want to be that guy. Yeah. I want to be her. Because when you see someone take a stance for someone else, it marks you. You never forget it.
Up next.
How many times have I stood on the podium with you, Donnie? Stood for you.
One of the most visually stunning shows on television. What is it like for you to film in these stunning locations?
Right there where we're shooting in the Bitterroot Valley. The Native Americans, after winter was over, would move up the Bitterroot and out to the plains and hunt buffalo all summer and then come back. There was a big settlers hall, formed a wall across that valley and said, you will never come through here again. So a civilization, a group of people who had been doing this for thousands and thousands of years, 60 years later, after meeting us, said, you can't come through here anymore. That story repeated itself across our country. I'm interested in that, and I'll make more stories about that, you know, without trying to make them history lessons or trying to set the record straight. But I'll continue to make stories about that interaction, about the westward expansion, and I'm not ashamed, and I'm not what happened. I realize the resourcefulness it took for, you know, the people that were here to make a life for themselves, but there was this wipeout. There was this tragedy that occurred, and it's not talked about in any meaningful way in school.
It was interesting because I've watched some of season 2, and there's a whole moment where one of the characters is speaking about whether or not she's going to speak about the history of Christopher Columbus in the most honest way or not.
Right.
And I just thought that was really compelling. It was a very woke moment in this series.
Yeah. Well, we've got our own dysfunction going along. We've got our own little soap opera happening here.
Yeah. All right. Gotta roll. Gotta wrap.
Got to do what?
We gotta wrap. We gotta go.
Oh, yeah, fair enough.
Kevin, thank you so much for surfing by. You can catch Yellowstone Wednesday nights on the Paramount Network. See you next week on Couch Surfing.